Thank you for joining me. This is Anna Imagination with the Healing Garden, and welcome to Shifting Perspectives and Triadic Healing. We are going to talk about two specific perspectives, the fourth perspective and the 10th perspective. The reason why we're going to talk about this is because Triadic Healing is 100% built out of the 8th, ninth, and 10th perspective. The common language, the societal expectations, the vocabulary you are using is 100% from the fourth perspective. As a result, there is imprecision with the fourth perspective that does not exist with the 8th, ninth, and 10th perspective. There are concepts that are going to be introduced with the 8th, ninth, 10th perspective that are completely abstract and incomprehensible to a fourth perspective and lower. As a result, the vocabulary doesn't exist. So if you are a fifth or a sixth perspective, I'm going to be providing you with terminology, concepts, methods that are so abstract that you're just not going, how do I say it? And this is what I mean. This is it right here. There's no words for 90% of what I have to communicate to you, because what I'm communicating to you is all coming from the 8th, ninth, and 10th perspective. So when you hear a lot of what I have to say in Triadic Healing, some of it's going to be mind-blowing. Some of it is going to be so extraordinarily and it's going to shift you so drastically because you are used to a fourth perspective, hearing concepts from the 10th perspective. It's exactly like a 5-year-old. No, not even a 5-year-old. It's like a 10-year-old having these massive epiphanies while reading classic literature because they are tapping into a perspective that's higher than theirs. It's like when they have constant epiphany after constant epiphany. And when you learn them on your own and in order, the epiphanies come to you in a latter learning setting so that you have the foundational background. But when a 10th perspective is coming to you and you're used to the fourth perspective concepts, there's going to be so much of a perspective gap. We're talking a 6 perspective gap between the fourth and the 10th that it's going to be absolutely mind-blowing. Now, if you're a 6th perspective, you're only looking at a 4 perspective gap, so it's going to be a lot more, oh, you know what, that makes a lot of sense. But if you're closer to a 5th perspective, you're going to be like, wow. Now, if you are 4th perspective, it's going to sound like crazy to you, which is why a lot of 4th perspectives call 6 perspectives and higher crazy. It's because they're in the 4th perspective. Now, it's going to range, depending upon where you are in your development, between absolute mind-blowing epiphany to sudden clear comprehension to, oh my God, it's so simple. Why couldn't I see it before? It's because this is 10th perspective insight. And that's really what this is. This is insight. When you are 4th perspective, you have 4th stage insight. And when you are at 6th perspective, you have 6th perspective insight. So you are a 4th, a 5th, or a 6th getting 10th perspective insight. So it's going to go over your head sometimes, depending upon where you are in your growth stage. Or it's going to blow your mind away, depending upon where you are in the growth stage. Or it's going to feel so good and make so much sense that it feels like you finally have the answer, depending upon your growth stage. Which is why I don't work with anyone who's 4th perspective or lower, is because I'm giving 10th perspective material to 5, 6, 7, 8, 9s. And when they hear what I have to say, it's already a massive, oh my God, that makes so much sense. Dr. Spock from the 1950s parenting book comes from the 4th perspective. Traditional therapy comes from the 4th perspective. Most books, most textbooks, most psychologists, most therapists come from the 4th perspective. Almost everything we have today comes from the 4th perspective. So there's a lot now where it's going, this doesn't make sense. Here's the other thing is our learning style changes with each perspective. A 2-year-old, a 2 perspective does not learn the same way as a 4th perspective. This is a great example when you look at early child development. 2-year-olds do not learn the same way as a 5-year-old. 10-year-olds learn differently than 3-year-olds. It's because of their perspective stage of growth. Now, a fourth perspective learns X, which is why all of our school systems have been catered to the fourth perspective learning style. But now we're getting into the fifth perspective. Millennials and Gen Zs are here. They learn differently than the fourth perspectives. So suddenly the learning style is different. Fourth perspectives are going, no, we won't change. Fourth perspectives hate change. Oh my God, do they hate change? Fifth and sixth perspectives are all about making sure you're fluid and you're evolving and you're accommodating the change as it comes. They're ready to change with growth because they're fifth and sixth perspectives. So as I give this material to you, you are getting 10th perspective material. It's going to be abstract. It's going to be absolutely out there. And in some cases, it's going to sound crazy to you, depending upon where you are on the growth stage. But the closer you get to the 10th perspective with your own development, the more you're going to go, oh, that makes so much sense. Which is why I will not talk about anything from 7th perspective and higher. I only cover the first 6 perspectives. Because if I start giving you theories that are 10th perspective, and I have, and they are out there, people hear them, and I get a lot of mixed things. It's because it's coming from the second stage of human growth. Whereas the first stage, the first 6 perspectives, are in a completely different type of mindset, foundational and cultivation. Whereas the 7th perspective and higher are visionary, completely different mindset. So it's something that as you go through Triadic Healing, be mindful that you are getting concepts from the 10th perspective insight. And that's going to be absolutely incompatible with the 4th perspective. One of my biggest pet peeves is when I have comments and people coming in telling me how wrong I am, and then they cite material from the 3rd and 4th perspective. Or I have people coming in contradicting me and they're giving me information from the 2nd perspective. And I'm just looking at it going, I'm at 10th perspective. What are you doing? What are you doing? I don't work with that. I do not touch foundationals. So keep that in mind as you go through Triadic Healing. The material you are getting is not Googleable. Googleable. It's not something you can just search because it does not exist, because it is 10th perspective. And it's only the people who are really solid into 6th perspective and higher appreciate the material and they get it and they absorb it like, oh my God, this is beautiful. 5th perspectives struggle. 5th perspectives are on the fence. If you understand it and if you follow it, it's because you're heading towards 6th perspective. If you are a 5th perspective who's leaning closer to the 4th perspective and who's holding on to your 2nd perspective mentality, it's going to go right over your head. It's not going to work. You're not ready for it. The perspective gap is too big. Absolutely, it's too big. So keep that in mind. If you want to do Triadic Healing, it is not for perspectives, 4th perspective and smaller. It's not for that. It is for 6th perspective and higher. It is for some 5th perspectives. And when I say 5th perspective, that doesn't mean all of them, because half of the 5th perspectives lean toward 4th perspective. The other half lean toward the 6th perspective. You must value growth in order to understand Triadic Healing. If you do not value growth, Triadic Healing is not going to work for you. Try the DIY program, see how that works for you. And if it works for you, and if this vibrates with you, if this absolutely is your frequency, jump into our workshops, jump into the one-on-one calls that I do. But if it's something you're already struggling with, that DIY where it's so far-fetched, it's because you're at that 5th perspective and you're leaning toward those who value comfort more than growth. So keep that in mind as you step into this material, that this is coming from the 10th perspective. When I started Triadic Healing, when I really started to deliver Triadic Healing, I was in the 8th perspective articulating all this stuff. I could not articulate until I got to the 8th perspective. So my classes and everything I have starts at 8th perspective and on. And that's when you see completely different abstract concept get put out there. So keep that in mind. Thank you so much. If you love shit like this, like, subscribe, follow, comment below. Let me know what part of the show resonated with you. And go ahead and donate to the garden, help the garden grow. Thank you so much. And may the kindest of words always find you.